First Line, a show where we discuss sports, both professional and collegiate. Our good pal Massimo is a bit under the weather at the moment. He is, let's say, below the 50th percentile in wellness at the moment. He is not here tonight. So me and Mike will be taking over the show for tonight. Later show. Sorry we haven't been too active recently with the shows, but tonight we saved it all. We loaded it all up in the base cannon. Mike, you ready to unleash the base cannon tonight?
Oh, I'm ready to go full behemoth on the base
Full
cannon.
behemoth, full
Ready to
sports
go.
cannon tonight.
Let's
And
go.
we're going to start it off with a topic that we'd much rather not talk about, but at the same time would like to talk about.
Because we have to.
We're going to talk about Temple football. I'm gonna lay it on you right now. Temple football's bad. They're really bad. In
Yeah.
fact, the Owls are so bad that I can't even put into words just what's so bad about them other than the whole collected group. The Temple Owls have now lost 2 straight. They played a game on the road at USF, obviously 2 weeks ago, versus number 21 ranked team. Lost that 43-7. They came home and played a very well-equipped Houston team. Not as good as last year, obviously Greg Ward Jr. leaving, but a very well-equipped, a very good Houston team. Had them there for a minute, lost the game 20-13.
Should have won that game, though.
But besides that, let's look at the situation. Mike, and I want you to start out. You know what? Forget the situation. Let's just start figuring out what's going wrong here, Mike. What do you think is the ultimate thing that has gone wrong in the past 2 weeks and all season for Temple football?
I'm looking at the problems, and number one, it's the offense. There is no question it is the offense. I felt so confident this year because no matter who our quarterback was, we would have Ventel Bryant, Adonis Jennings, Raquel Armstead, what I thought would be a very good offensive line, which is not being very good its first 5 games, would propel no matter who was at quarterback, whether it was Logan Marshy, Frank Newtile, or Santino, would propel him into be at least an average offense because I think our defense is fine. We held Houston to 20 points. It wasn't good against USF, but you saw in the first half, or more particularly the first quarter, how it was ugly because our defense made it ugly. I feel like our defense is good, and it's going to get better, and by the end of the year, it's going to be trending towards, an above-average defense. But this offense is just awful right now, and it's breaking the back of the defense. There's only so much a defense can do for you in today's football.
Yeah, it was. I think the whole storyline all season, obviously, was Jeff Collins, defensive coordinator. And we repeat this every single show, and I feel like we really beat it down too much. We really talk about it too much, but it's important to note that he was a defensive coordinator. And to be honest, after the Notre Dame game, it was like, well, Marshy wasn't that bad. It was just defense. Then we had a couple of games at home where we played UMass, played Villanova, both tight games, and it was like
those are games we're supposed to smack up.
And at the end of the game, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the defense." And for the longest time, I feel like, when you say I don't want to talk about it, you mean I don't want to talk about it. Or when someone says let's talk about it later, what you really mean is I don't want to talk about it. I feel like everyone's been like, let's talk about it later when they don't want to talk about it now. And then now at the moment for Temple football is there's just no stable quarterback. Defensively, they're not as good as they were last year, but Logan Marshy...
They're showing improvements, though. That Houston game, they showed real improvement as they they played more of a complete defensive game than they did their first 4 games, over 4 quarters in that Houston game. I feel like our defense, yes, they gave up 20 points, but they played a lot better, I feel like, as a whole, collectively, throughout the course of a game, other than those 4 games. I never felt out of those games. The Villanova-UMass game, I was biting my nails, That Houston game, I wasn't expecting to be in it all 4 quarters, and I feel like we were in it all 4 quarters because of our defense.
Yeah, and I think, when we look at the stats and when you look at the overall perspective here, playing South Florida, he had 3 completions for 13 attempts, 32 yards. This past game, he had 21 completions on 41 attempts for 182, had 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown. Now, a lot of people like to immediately turn their eyes to the quarterback being the leader of the team on the 3 interceptions, and they like to blame it on the fact that he threw those 3 interceptions, and that's why we didn't win that game. But there's a bigger story here, and I feel like it all leads towards just nothing's going right, just defensively. Sometimes I feel like when I watch this team, I don't know if I can trust them out there in a close-knit situation when Houston's got the ball and they're trying to drive it down to tie or win the ball game. And I can't trust them on offense because you said it best, Mike. This whole season was about Raquel Armstead kind of leading that offense, taking that leadership role. And, just this season, me personally just watching this team, he hasn't really gotten it going, to be honest. 0 rushing touchdowns on the season, 243 rushing yards on 73 carries. He's averaging 3.5, had a long of 56, which I believe was in the Notre Dame game. And just overall, David Hood's even made his presence known. It's just the fact that overall here, when we look at the grand scheme of things, offensive line is banged up. Reichwell can't get it done. Receiving core hasn't been up to par. We don't know what's going on with the quarterback. And defensively, I just don't think the mentality's there when Hassan Reddick was there. I don't think the mentality's still there.
I think it's definitely to blame. You can put it on the majority of the blame. You can put it on the offensive line because we've seen, in the Matt Rule era, especially the last 2 years, when Temple has seen the success, they could run the ball. They'll line up an I formation, 4 straight plays, and they'll get 5 to 8 yards all 4 of those runs. Then they'll just run it to the left the next time and get a 48-yard run. They weren't afraid to just punch you in the mouth. And when you're averaging 2.5 yards per carry like you are this year, you're not punching anybody in the mouth.
Yeah.
That's what we're missing. We're missing that quick jab we will give teams. We don't have that punch anymore. We don't have that aggression, that physicality of those former teams. And I think it's interesting how after the USF game, Ventel Bryant, said after one of his practices, him and offense coordinator, they're still working to get on the same page. I mean, you're 4 weeks in. You kind of got to be on the same page if the team needs to be successful.
Yeah.
If we had aspirations as a team to win the conference, that's no longer realistic. We know that. But even if we want to get to a bowl game, the receiver and offensive coordinator have to be on the same page. Maybe they're working, maybe they're getting better, and this offense maybe can start making progressions. This offensive line, though, has to just be consistent. But it's just this offense is in shambles. I just can't believe it.
And I think you said it best. The explosion's definitely lacking. South Florida, it was completely lacking. Actually, the time of possession was ridiculous. South Florida had the ball for 32 minutes. Temple had the ball for 27, which may not seem like a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But when South Florida got the ball in that game, they got the ball and they got off pretty quick. I mean, this game was it was not uncontested at halftime. It was a 20-3 game at halftime.
Oh, I think Temple had plenty of opportunities to take
control
of that game.
And early in that game, to be honest, South Florida kind of beat themselves up. There were opportunities for Temple to kind of climb back in that game, and Notre Dame kind of reminds me a lot of the interception, the Mike Jones interception in the Notre Dame game. Returns it all the way back to the red zone, and Temple just can't get it in. Same exact deal. Temple gets the ball back early in a game versus South Florida. They can't punch it in or they can't produce, and from that point going forward, I just think mentality is a big thing right now. When you're throwing in so many different quarterbacks and you're trying out so many different things, how long will that work? You know what I mean? And going forward, what are we looking at here? Because I just think it's a problem when you bring in Logan Marshy in a game versus South Florida, and regardless of if he's having a bad game or not, then you bring in Newtile, then you bring in Centino. You know what I mean? And then the next game, you don't really see much of Newtile. You see mostly Marshy, and Marshy has this good game. So you got to kind of wonder, is the confidence back? Where's his head at? Where's this entire team's head at right now? I just don't feel like there's enough sense of urgency this year with this ball club, to be honest with you.
It doesn't seem like the coaching staff wants to find an answer. That's what it kind of seems to me on offense. It doesn't seem like they want to find an answer. Like, they'll try people out, later in the games when they tried Newtown and Santino on the USF game, but they'll just go right back to Marshy. They don't want to. It doesn't seem like they even know what's going on, really, because I don't know if we have a quarterback that's really capable right now. What do we want to do? Because I feel like these receivers are very explosive. We need to be able to give them short, accurate throws, and we need to be able to also stretch the field at the same time. And I don't think we have a guy that can do all the above.
Now, I think a big thing that sticks out to me this year, and it's stuck out to me since Villanova, is just Ventel Bryant. No touchdowns on the season, has averaging 10, 131. It's funny, actually, one guy that's taken over this offense receiving-wise, Isaiah Wright, who showed out last year. I thought he was fantastic, and I really expected a lot of him. The one touchdown on the year that Mr. Wright has is obviously the game winner versus UMass, which was fantastic. He came into, I have a class with him this year. He came into my class the next day, and the professor had the touchdown on the TV board, and when he walked in, he just started cracking up.
That's
but
awesome.
Besides the point, Donis Jennings also he's been fantastic. Receiving wise, I don't think once on this show we've ever said receiving wise Temple is not capable.
Oh, this team
is
a
good receiving core.
This team is beyond capable.
They're very
with the receiving
capable.
core. They're beyond capable.
There's just a lot of question marks. And when I say a lot, I mean on the emphasis.
Your question marks that are honestly at your two most important spots on your offense, your quarterback and your offensive line.
Yeah.
If you just look at teams at any level of football, if you have a good offensive line, you have a good quarterback, more likely than not, your offense is at least average. If you have those two components that are good. We have good skill positions. We just don't have a good quarterback, and we don't have an answer for the offensive line.
Yeah.
We just can't figure anything out.
Yeah. it was funny because, when we came into the South Florida game, I remember back in July, it was funny. When we were thinking about this back in July, we were like, oh, we kind of bought into the whole Collins kept preaching to the media, I got 3 guys who can play. It's just a matter of who I want to throw in there. And when we went into the South Florida game, the confidence was obviously a little bit low just because it's when you win 2 straight games, you're typically supposed to have a higher confidence. You're supposed to build off momentum. But the 2 games that they won, it was like, is this defense even going to be able to hold South Florida? And it wasn't even the defense. The defense held their own in the first half for the most part.
It just comes to a point where the offense doesn't do anything. It's just the defense just comes out and it's like, what are we doing out here? Offense is doing nothing. We're doing everything we can. And it just comes to a point where eventually it's just take one big play, and it was the big play by South Florida, the big run, and after that it was just all downhill. It just took one extra push. And the defense was done because our offense wasn't doing anything and didn't show any signs of doing anything in the near future in that game.
Yeah.
It just all stems from the offense.
I think just moving forward, obviously the record is what the record is. They're at 2-3 right now. Remaining on the schedule, you got East Carolina on the road, UConn at home. You play Navy at home, and I believe yes, UCF at home too. UCF's ranked number 25 in the nation right now, starting out 3-0.
So now your last home game is against a ranked team.
You play Navy at home on a Thursday night. That's an interesting matchup, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot. Navy's 4-0 right now.
And it'll be really interesting too because you play Army the week before that. Yeah. So we'll sort of get the second straight week of getting an offense similar to that.
You kind of get a similar taste, like the Army to the Navy's offense. That's kind of like, let me think of something here. Like when you get like fruit punch from the store, but you want Hawaiian punch, but the fruit punch will just do. Like that's Army to Navy.
I feel it. Yeah, it'll just
offensively.
get it done.
Moving forward, barring something unbelievable, I just don't see this team really making a conference championship this season.
You think a bowl's realistic? I think bowl is beyond.
Listen, I think a bowl is realistic. It's just a matter of how they handle themselves going forward. I think at this point in the season, this could be a very important game for Temple.
We just can't.
Because let's say I don't know. East Carolina actually played USF pretty good. The final score did not reflect that game nearly enough. East Carolina actually played USF this past week and pushed them to a good game. Mm-hmm. I think that's a make or breaker.
And East Carolina gave Virginia Tech a pretty decent game. I thought earlier in the season, after they lost to James Madison, I was thinking, okay, East Carolina can maybe be a surefire win, but they played USF, pretty decent in the first half.
414 yards total.
They gave Virginia Tech a game. They gave Virginia Tech a game into the fourth quarter. So at East Carolina, that's a tough game, but that's a game, honestly, I think we should win.
Because if you lose to East Carolina on the road, next week you ask me, do you think we're going to make a bowl? I say no. And I think this is a make or breaker. I think you can win this game and you can ride this one
If you want to make a bowl, I think you're going to have a road win.
You got to beat Tulsa.
If you don't beat East Carolina, I think your next best chance at getting a pretty decent road victory will either be at Army or at Cincinnati.
Because I can't guarantee a win at Navy, Cincinnati, UCF, or Army. I can almost guarantee you one at UConn.
That's it. And
Tulsa, I really hope I can guarantee you one, but at that point
by the end of the season, I hope I can guarantee it because I think this defense will be good enough by then.
I think the bowl is manageable, and I think once you get that in your head, it's a lot easier to think about. But moving forward, we just got a lot of question marks. I think it's a young team.
If we want to win a bowl, we can realistically only lose 2 more games max. And looking at the rest of the schedule, can I guarantee you that we're only going to lose 2 of those games and win the rest?
No, because apparently UCF's good. UCF's bad.
Well, they just beat Memphis.
I had Blake Bortles on the phone earlier. I should have kept him on.
He's even surprised.
He's even surprised.
It's
I
awesome,
think we're all dumbfounded.
Hey, UCF's back. Maybe Blake Bortles can make a comeback like UCF.
Hopefully. Maybe he'll be on the sideline down in Orlando.
Oh yeah, that'll be really cool.
And he'll be decked out in Disney gear.
He's just wearing all gold.
Imagine you go to school in Orlando. Like, at what point when you go to school in Orlando, is there ever a point where you could just get sick of Disneyland or Disney World? There's a big difference, by the way, folks. Big difference.
Big difference.
So, we were talking about Disney World. That's right. I remember when I went to Disney World for the first time. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. I went to Disney World this past year and I hated it. And you kind of realize
past year.
Last
time I went was about Actually, I went for senior trip for my high school a couple of years ago.
Food's so overpriced. It's not that
bad. Everything's
overpriced.
Not that bad. Everything's overpriced at any public venue.
I was watching the Family Guy episode where Peter's like, I have my own cooking show, and Quagmire's like, oh, what do you mean? You're not even a real cook? He's like, then why do I already have 4 restaurants at Disney World in Orlando?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we'll just jab for the funny, for the tone,
Yeah,
for the tone of the
I like
show,
the
kind of
little
picking it up because we were talking there for Temple football. I gotta be honest, when we talk about Temple football,
it's easy to get down.
It's easy to get down, but for your health, we'll take that one. But we're gonna bring the mood back up. We're gonna take it back on down south. We're gonna talk about a different game now. One game that a lot of people were watching, a lot of people were really excited for. Me personally, I was excited for, having a lot of friends at Virginia Tech. It was the Virginia Tech Clemson game. And I think we've learned two things. One is that Clemson just really never lost control of this game. And two, Clemson's pretty damn good. And I don't think they're going anywhere, Mike.
Clemson's really good.
You were talking Clemson up before the show, so I'm going to back up. The big boy gloves are off. Mike, here are the big boy gloves. You can start this one out. I want you to talk. Give me some that's... I want to ask you, I guess, Clemson, you said they're better than last year. What makes you feel like this team, compared to last year, having Deshaun Watson, having that caliber defense, beating an Alabama team on the last second in the national championship, what all that accumulated underweighs this Clemson football team this year?
I think I was moving Deshaun Watson moving away. I think it definitely hurts a little bit. But I'm just looking at this team and watching all the games they're playing, and it's 3rd and 8 early in the fourth quarter, and Kelly Bryant's just back there in a shotgun, and I have full confidence that he'll either throw for a first down or he can easily run for a first down. I think Kelly Bryant is honestly the difference maker here. He's a freshman, but he's holding down the fort for the offense.
Yeah.
I don't feel scared when he's under center. I feel like they can convert every third down. I feel like they're potent enough, and he's has the same capabilities of Deshaun Watson. I feel like he's a mirror image of Deshaun Watson. He's going to grow up and pretty much be Deshaun Watson Jr.
Yeah.
And this defensive line, I just see more pressure. There's nowhere to go in a run game. Virginia Tech was just suffocated that whole entire game. There's no way they can crawl back into that game, and I just like Clemson. They're knocking teams out of games early like they did last year. Again, this year, there's really no change. I see the same exact team, and when I see teams continue the same exact success for 2 years in a row, they're only getting better and better. And I'm just loving how this team's looking right now because I'm watching Clemson's football game against Virginia Tech, and not at one point do I think Clemson can throw this game away.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the nail. The whole thing that makes Kelly Bryant so unique in its own respects is just the confidence you have in him. You really, when you watch that guy on that field, offensively, Clemson just this season is more, dare I say, more sound. I feel like last season when Clemson would go on the field offensively, 2 out of the 3 drives you'd get Clemson. And there would always be that one drive where Deshaun Watson would overthrow or do something out of expectations or something out of the ordinary, essentially is what I'm trying to say.
They're extremely consistent.
But this season, Kelly Bryant has proved to us, I like him as a runner more than an actual quarterback, but it's not even, speaking of running, it's not even about Kelly Bryant. It's about this whole team rushing-wise. This has to be one of the best rushing offenses, if not the best rushing offenses in the country. Kelly Bryant gets it done on his legs. Travis Etienne's getting it done on his legs. You still have C.J. Fuller. You still have Tavion Fester. You still have Adam Choice can come in for you. All these guys with longs above 30 yards this season, and all of them have above 3 touchdowns. Kelly Bryant has 7. Travis Etienne with 4. C.J. Fuller with 3. And to be honest with you, I just think overall, rushing-wise with Kelly Bryant at quarterback, receiving-wise, you got a lot of confidence in Ray McLeod. You got, of course, why wouldn't you have a lot of confidence in Hunter Renfrow? It's hard to have not have confidence in Hunter Renfrow after what he did last season in the biggest game of the year. But I think moving forward, I got a lot of confidence in this Clemson football team.
Where do you think their ceiling's at? What do you think they're going to do at the end of the year?
I think moving forward, when you really look at the schedule, Wake Forest is a better team this season, actually. If we wanted to talk about Wake Forest for a second. Because they're playing Wake Forest next week, and they're 4-1.
Mm-hmm.
And
they just had a loss to Florida State.
They did just lose to Florida
really
State.
Tough loss.
And Florida State's... wow. Talk about what's going on. I'm sorry, Josh.
Talk about a complete change of moods.
I'm sorry, Josh. My friend goes to Florida State. Side note. But Florida State, what's going on with them this year?
It's rough. Soon as Francois got hurt, it was just right. You ever see The Price is Right in that little cliffhanger that little cliffhanger game?
Yeah.
Like the Yodeling guy just goes and he just falls. That was Florida State. just
when Francois
got hurt, they're at 24. They go 25. They fall right off the cliff. Season's over. What are you gonna do?
Well,
that's what happened.
I guess to rewind the tape, going back, I like him to beat Wake Forest. I like him to really beat up on Syracuse.
Yeah.
I think Georgia Tech
Georgia
can give
Tech
him
will
a
give him
game.
a little game.
Georgia Tech will give him a slight game.
That North Carolina State, that's going to be a good game.
I remember we were talking up Taquan Marshall on the show a few weeks ago when he was playing Tennessee. Kid's having a good year, 4 touchdowns, no INTs, 333 yards passing. Done a good job. Over 500 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns.
9 touchdowns. That's pretty baller season.
Pretty decent. I really actually, Mike, to be honest with you, there's one game that I eye, and it's NC State. And I don't eye NC State because they upset Florida State, because to be honest, it wasn't much of an upset if we think about it in retrospective here. I eye NC State because overall, just this season for NC State offensively is enough to maybe overpower Clemson. It's just a matter of how Clemson responds in that situation. Ryan Finley's a good quarterback, 9 touchdowns on the season, over 1,400 yards for the Wolfpack. He's not that bad. He's not too shabby. Kind of reminds me of Phillip Rivers. Man, I'm waiting for the day when NC State football, just Phillip Rivers is on the sideline.
Oh, yeah.
Because sure as hell no, he doesn't want to be in LA right now. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that later. But, just NC State making a playoff maybe one day. Phillip Rivers is out there repping. That'll be hilarious.
I think they'll give him a game. Jalen Samuels is he's a good running back. And a good receiver, too. He can do both. He's a receiver as a running back, though. You know what I mean? He's playing receiver, but he might as well be the running back.
They definitely will give him the game. I'm going to wait till I see them play Louisville this week. They have Louisville coming into their home turf. So they have Louisville coming down to see how they perform against Louisville, because the defense of Louisville is nothing like Clemson's, but the offense, if you can stop Louisville's offense, you can maybe stop Clemson's offense. It'll be sort of a benchmark game. After that game, I'll be confident to say, NC State can give them a game or they won't give them a game. That's the game I'm really looking at next week, and that's a pretty good game. Number 24 ranked team against 17, Louisville.
I'll be interested to see how Lamar Jackson responds to that game, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I think that's gonna be a really good game. That's underdog for one of the better games this week, honestly.
One of the better ones, yeah. Moving forward, to answer your question long and short, I guess I don't see any reason why Clemson doesn't win out. I don't see any reason why they're not in the top 4. They're not back in the playoff. I'm just saying this is college football.
So
and you never know.
You never know.
South Carolina, they play South Carolina on the road in Columbia last week of the season. That'll be an interesting
rivalry game. You never know what happens.
Rivalry game, home state, battling for the turf.
You never know.
You never really quite do know with college football.
But hey, we're gonna talk like we do now.
Yeah. So moving on to another game this week, we're going to take it off the steam off a little bit. Actually, no, never mind. Steam's coming back on because now we got to talk about Tennessee football.
Ooh.
And we got to talk about what's going on down there. And I really didn't want to talk about this, but we have to because team down in Athens is number 5 right now.
Yeah,
Georgia Bulldogs number 5 in the nation.
And they just did a little smack up on Tennessee.
They did a little smack up, and we're going to talk about that. Honestly, guy, you know what? Because it was funny. People always ask me, how do you talk about your favorite teams and how do you talk about that on the air and how do you really talk about that from an unbiased standpoint? But I'm going to give it to you short and sweet. If you haven't accepted the fact that Butch Jones isn't getting fired by the end of this season, then I really think you should take a step out, grab a breather, maybe grab a coffee at Starbucks downstairs because Tennessee football is a disaster and Georgia football just capitalized on that disaster this weekend. It was god-awful.
Georgia's completely capitalized, especially Jake Fromm. Who had a very stellar
playing
game.
As a backup quarterback.
And who's having a very stellar season. Give a shout out to him. Technically, the backup, but Georgia's at the number 5 ranking right
Jacob
now.
Eason was the guy at the start of the season, went out early, so Fromm's taking over the role. He had 84 yards.
He's got him at the number 5 ranking right now, knocking on the door in the playoffs. And it's really going to come down if they want to make the playoffs. Hey, they're an SEC team, so the committee might be, hey, you're an SEC team. We'll push a second SEC team in the playoff maybe, but because they kind of don't like Penn State. But I think Georgia, it'll come down if they want to be a playoff team, if they can contain this success, and they're on the road to play Alabama in the conference championship game.
It's a good team. No, it's a good team. Godwin obviously out of receiving core, doing a great job this year. Nick Chubb had a great game, 23 long, 109 yards total. Michelle had 64 yards. Swift had 36. Overall, what does this tell you? Tennessee's defense was really, really bad on Saturday. And you want to know who else was really bad? And it kills me to say this. John Kelly was really bad this weekend for Tennessee. 44 yards, 0 touchdowns, had a long of 8 on 16 carries. But it wasn't just John Kelly. Most comparatively to Temple football, there is an offensive line problem, obviously, down there in Knoxville at the moment. I guess moving forward, it was a bad game. Tennessee never found a spark. Quentin Darmody was awful. 2 interceptions. He was real bad. was actually really bad. 5
Yeah,
for 15.
well, first pass was an interception.
First pass of the game was an
First
interception.
pass
Right
of the
when
game
you
was
get
an
the ball.
interception. Right away. Game started bad.
Guantano actually came in 6 for 7, 16 yards. It was not that bad, but obviously that was later in the game.
I think Tennessee, the main goal for the rest of the season is just find something to build off of for next season. Just find something to build off of.
There comes a point where Tennessee, every single year, they're always trying to find something to build off of. And every single year, Butch Jones is preaching the give me time, be patient. It's kind of reminiscent of the trust the process here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, there's only so much patience with
trusting.
football.
And I'm going to give it to you straight right now. I've been patient. We went through Josh Dobbs. We have Quentin Dormady now. We went through Tyler Bray, and, the Kansas City quarterback. We've gone through quarterbacks. I'll go all the way back to Peyton Manning. We've gone through offenses, defenses. Every single year this team is capable. The difference is that Tennessee just finds a way, and Mike, you hit it right on there, always finds a way to shoot themselves in the foot, always finds a way to make one mishap that changes the course of the game. It's just, everything is just bad, and we've been patient, and this team is capable. You have a great running back. You have a first-year quarterback, but a capable quarterback. This receiving core is fantastic. Marcos Callaway will go to the NFL. Brandon Johnson will go to the NFL. I'll be shocked if Ethan Wolf doesn't go to the NFL. Juwan Jennings, if he could pick himself back up off the ground, he'll even have a shot at going to the NFL. It's a pro-caliber team. It's just, moving forward, when you look at Tennessee, you play Alabama coming up here. You're 3-2. You're 0-2 in the SEC. You're really similar to Temple football. You're really out of the conference discussion because Florida, it's always Florida and Tennessee every single year in this conference, in this division.
Yeah. And the way George is looking.
The way George is looking right now, and just moving forward, when you look at their remaining schedule, I don't know. I think Tennessee, what they can look into building off of is, what have we learned from these 10 years? Is that Tennessee was a youthful football team that has grown into the team they are now. And one thing I feel like they've never learned is when to and when to not execute on certain situations and how to not give up the big play. It's always the big play that changes the course of the game for Tennessee.
There's just always teams that don't finish, and Tennessee is just one of those teams in recent years. They just don't finish.
Never finish, and we'll see what they'll do this weekend. They're playing South Carolina at home at Neyland again. You got 3 straight games in Neyland now. That's freaking just spoil them already.
Yeah.
Home field advantage, and then you got to go to Tuscaloosa on the road. Life gets kind of easier after that. They play LSU, who, by the way, lost to Troy. By the way, actually. We'll take the steering off Tennessee for now because we can always talk about them. I wanted to talk about this game anyway. We have to. Mike, what went wrong? How did Troy beat LSU this weekend?
Their homecoming game, too.
Their homecoming. It was homecoming. I wonder if they crowned the queen.
I wonder if Troy just stole the show. Well, Troy pretty much did
steal the show because
from the beginning too. Grabbed the lead, They
also stole the possession, 34 minutes compared to LSU's 25. They also stole not the yardage, but the overall fourth down efficiency was there for Troy too. Rushing yards was there for Troy. LSU threw 2 interceptions. Troy threw 0. 428 yards total for the Baton Rouge and company. It was at home in Baton Rouge too. I guess that's what really blows my mind.
It's your LSU homecoming game. How does LSU lose a homecoming game to Troy? That's incredible.
Well, I guess moving forward, Troy's 4-1. They're 2-1. Playoff team, Mike. What do you think?
Playoff team. Well, they can maybe contend if they want for a New Year's Six Bowl.
Brandon Silver's under center. There's nothing they can't accomplish. Two touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the season. Guy's a natural.
Yeah, he is fantastic. A natural. How about Jordan Chon putting up 191 on that vaunted LSU defense?
Yeah. In all serious,
how about getting your name out there for one night? Say, hey, mama, I just did good against LSU.
And in all serious, that small town of Troy, Alabama, congrats. Because to be honest, there's probably nothing that'll take place in that town for the next 50 years. So they might as well capitalize on it while they can. I guess overall, though, kind of a wild weekend. And one thing that really was wild was every single year this team's always thrown into the discussion. And once again, we're at that point of the year where we take them out of the discussion. USC football. Mike, you want to give your take on that? They played a ranked Washington State team this weekend. College game day was actually stolen by Clemson and Virginia Tech. They humbled themselves with that. It was actually supposed to be at USC and Washington State. Not sure if Corso wanted one game over the other. I'd have to go talk to him after this, get his opinion on it. But I guess, talking about USC
I think
football.
Corso just wanted to put on the Clemson Tiger head.
Talking about USC football, let's talk about Sam Darnold, because about a month ago he was considered to be the first overall pick. Let's talk about Sam Darnold. Why don't we?
He's trying way too hard. You just look at the film and everybody is really noticing this. he's forcing the ball when he doesn't. He's trying to do too much. But sometimes you try to do too much when your run game isn't there.
Yeah.
And when your offense is very inconsistent.
He has 8 interceptions on the season. That's a big storyline.
That's a huge storyline. He's supposed to be number 1 overall pick.
He's supposed to be. I mean, in general, versus Washington State, he had 15 completions on 29 attempts, 164. One game that really stood out was the Texas game. He went off in Texas in a close game, too, played really well. Was impressed with him despite the 2 interceptions in that game.
That USC Texas game was awesome because I just love how everyone was saying you're not going to get a USC letdown like you get every other year coming off a good win. You're not going to get it against Texas this year. And what do you get? You got a USC letdown. They barely squeak away with the win. But I just love how everybody was saying that. It's like, oh, there's no way USC is going to have a letdown like they do every other year, and they do. It's just hilarious how this team's almost going to be like every other USC team.
Yeah.
I just feel like Sam Darnold needs to relax. I feel like that offense needs to find some consistency because I don't think the defense is really the problem. I just think that offense needs to find some consistency because Sam Darnold is very talented. So I just think if they find a direction they want to go in, commit to the run more. Get more consistent with the run game so Sam Darnold doesn't have to always squeeze these throws and try to do too much, which leads to all these interceptions.
They were playing, I'll give them credit, they were playing a Washington State team who was undefeated, who was ranked. They haven't really had too much of a test.
Solid Washington
They
State
played
team.
Boise State earlier in the year. I watched that game live. They won that 47-44 in triple overtime. Besides that, they haven't had a true test, and so this was obviously a big win for them, moving forward for them. Washington State is ranked. They're playing in the Pac-12. I feel like I can finally get excited about Pac-12 football for once again.
Oh, the Pac-12 football, I just love it. It's just so much gunslinging.
I'd like to see how Washington State takes this because they got Utah on the road and Washington on the road to end the season.
Their final 2 games.
To end the season. That's me
because honestly, I think if...
Be interested to see how they handle this.
Yeah, like Oregon and Cal going into their stadiums is not going to be extremely easy. I mean, Oregon isn't obviously the Chip Kelly era Oregon. But it's still going to be
Oregon's
a tough game.
Team that I feel like for a while we talked about them even when they didn't deserve to be talked about, but there just came this point where you're like, I can't do it anymore.
Why are we doing this?
I can't do this
why
anymore.
Are we doing this?
Guys, I feel like we've got the point. There's 30 uniforms on deck in the locker room. We know you probably have 35. You probably have 42. That's besides the point. The swag doesn't cover up the fact that Oregon football has not been good in recent years. However, they're 4-1 this year. So if we want, we can talk about Oregon.
A night game, Oregon's getting a ranked opponent coming in. You know they're going to give it their all.
We can talk about Oregon because we're talking about Washington State, and this is their next game coming up. And a guy I'm really interested to see for Oregon is Justin Herbert at the quarterback position on the season, playing pretty well himself with over 1,200 yards. He's got a pretty decent completion percentage at 68.3, Mike. This kid's pretty good. I actually watched him 2 weeks ago. It's really not coming off the top of my head who Oregon was playing that week, but I got to see a little bit of him, kind of reminiscent of Marcus Mariota. Has the look to him. Definitely not the build. Very skinny dude. Mm-hmm. Very, very skinny. But I think Oregon football at 4-1.
How about their running back Rolls-Royce Freeman? I feel like he's like
Rolls-Royce Freeman.
I feel like he's an 8th-year senior right now.
Rolls-Royce Freeman. I feel like that's the guy you bring to your bachelor party.
Oh yeah,
yeah. We got Rolls-Royce Freeman.
Yeah, he's just rolling up with us. He's my best man, by the way.
Well, I'm sorry that the bottles never came and the women never arrived, and this hotel room was basically for nothing. But it's all good because Rolls-Royce Freeman's coming at 1:20 on the dot. So we got to get this place cleaned up.
But Rolls-Royce Freeman is a name you need to remember because I feel like he will be in the NFL one day.
Rolls-Royce Freeman.
He's a senior right now. He has 54 career touchdowns at Oregon.
I can hear him.
He was a feature back for the majority of his years at Oregon. He's definitely their best player.
He is their best player.
He is their best player. And if they want to be Washington State, I feel like Rolls-Royce Freeman has to get rolling early. And I think he could, but Rolls-Royce Freeman. I love that name. We're just gonna be stuck on that name.
Neil Everett. Do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah. Where is he at? I think he ran to the bathroom.
I think you do run to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. You're right though. I mean, he is their best player. 592 yards on the season, 28 long, 10 touchdowns. Look to see what he can do, and also see what Tony Brooks-James can do.
Right, that offense is putting up over 500 total yards per game. So
500 total.
Well, Washington State could be in for an early shock, or Oregon's actually favored to win this game by ESPN.
Because at this point, I pretty much accepted, and I hope you would accept too, that Alabama's winning the SEC this year. So I kind of take my focus to the Pac-12 now. And I'm excited to see what's going on because
honestly,
Washington was a playoff team last year.
If Washington State can beat a good offensive team in Oregon, beat a Cal team who gave you USC a little run for the money earlier in the year. Then beat Colorado, Arizona on the road, then finish out the year with Stanford at home, on the road to Utah, and on the road at Washington. If they could find a way to win out, I mean, they're definitely in a playoff conversation. How can you not have them in a playoff conversation? Because that's a pretty solid resume right there.
And if they can figure out what Luke Falk's been eating for breakfast this season and continue to make sure he eats that for breakfast, I think
if any other like college
teams, he's pretty good too. While we're on the discussion of Heisman, we did bring up Sam Darnold now, did we, Mike?
We did.
We did bring him up, and I'll bring up Luke Falk because he's pretty damn good. 340 yards last game, 478 the game before, 396 the game before.
16 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's ungodly right there. That's awesome.
And he was probably wearing those nice gray helmets that they wear at Washington State.
You got me on Washington State swag.
With the red.
Washington State has...
They do have a good swag. Who has better swag? Timeout. All right, go get me... I'm going to need a double espresso. All right, we're going to have a talk right here. Go on, yeah. Anyway, timeout. Better swag, Washington State or Washington?
Washington State or Washington?
Better swag.
Well, definitely Washington State.
Definitely Washington State?
Definitely Washington State.
You don't tell me you're not feeling the Washington all purple, the all black with the Washington?
It's tough, but I just can't get over that Washington State all grays, what they sported against USC. I like that. Better swag, Washington State or Boise State?
Washington State. 5 years ago I would have said Boise State, but I feel like Boise State's swag got old.
Yeah, I was about to say that got a little played out. I feel like their field's getting a little played out, by the way.
Weren't they supposed to get rid of that? Wasn't there was I heard something about that. They weren't supposed to play on the blue field because it was way too confusing for journalists and broadcasters. Yeah, I guess so.
Oh yeah, especially when
it must have not passed because that thing was as blue as the Pacific.
I was watching a game earlier in the season where they wore their blue uniforms on the blue turf, and I'm like, oh my god, but like this is a headache.
How do you diversify that?
That's a headache, man.
It is a headache.
Blue unis on blue turf, that's a headache.
It is.
It's a real headache.
Well, I think we've had enough of college football. There is obviously a lot to talk about. Notre Dame continued to win the college football rankings. Were put in this week. Couple shockers, obviously moving forward. Alabama's number 1, Clemson's 2, Oklahoma 3, Penn State number 4.
They had Penn State in the top 4. They finally gave them a little respect.
They did.
They finally gave them a little respect.
Teams I'm looking out for moving forward. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Who are you looking out for moving forward?
Definitely Georgia. I want to see how they finish out their SEC season because you never know what happens. LSU just had a letdown against Troy. So you never know what's going to happen with these SEC teams. I want to see if they can continue success, and if they continue on the pace they're going for right now, I want to see what they do against Alabama and Atlanta for the SEC championship game because that'll be big. And depending on that result, will the playoff committee let 2 SEC teams into the playoffs, depending on how Georgia finishes out the year?
I'm looking up at the boys in Ann Arbor on this one, knocking in at the door at number 7 right now. The Michigan Wolverines. I am really interested to see what the Michigan Wolverines do moving forward on this season.
Going under the radar this year a little bit.
Going under the radar. They have not been as good as they were expected to be this season. I'm not saying that Spate hasn't been a good quarterback. I mean, he's done all right for the most part. Just offensively, rushing has been pretty good for the most part, but nothing's really standing out. But I think just moving forward, the fact that Harbaugh's the coach is why I'm interested to see. You're playing at Penn State at number 4. You have Michigan State at home, a very winnable game. You play Indiana on the road. Indiana, as we saw earlier this year, not an elite football team, but not a bad football team. Mm-hmm. And then you play Wisconsin and Ohio State. It's cut to the point here. It's not an easy schedule, and we've seen in years past that Michigan always finds a way to shoot themselves in the foot. I'm going to be really, really interested to see what Michigan does moving forward.
It's all about that game at Penn State because if they're going to get the upper hand against Penn State, you're going to have to get in that big
Look out for Maryland, too. They're playing at Maryland at Byrd Stadium in College Park.
You never know. Maryland's had a very, very seesaw-type year, but you never know, especially against a conference opponent.
Yeah. Well, taking it from the collegiate perspective, we're taking it into a pro-style offense now. We're going to ditch the NCAA offense. We're going to move on to the NFL now. Mike, wow. Just wow. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3-1. The New England Patriots are 2-2. The Kansas City Chiefs are 4-0. The Cowboys, I guess, aren't as good as they were made out to be last year. And ultimately, I think one thing we've taken away is it's anyone's ball game this year, Mike. It is anyone's ball game, and I repeat that till the end because it's
legitimately anybody's ball game. Anybody
game.
Can be in the Super Bowl this year. Like, do not be surprised if we somehow get like an Eagles-Texans Super Bowl, or the Rams somehow make it to the NFC East Championship. I mean, in the NFC Championship game. Don't be surprised if something like that happens. I mean, it's incredible. Don't be surprised if the Bills make the wild card and maybe do some damage because they're not looking bad.
Yeah.
The Bills are looking pretty good. Don't be surprised if anything happens because we don't know what's going on. One week, every single team we thought would be good looks good. Then the next week we're like, wait, what just happened? It's the complete opposite. There's a lot of things happening. You know, the Bills and the Rams, I think, are the two storylines in my opinion. How strong they came out, and the Bills going into Atlanta and playing a really good game where everybody doubted them.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, and the way the Patriots look, the Bills could win this division. Just basing it off the first 4 games, I don't see a reason why they can't.
Yeah. I'm not going to disagree with you, Mike. I'd love to say that I can disagree with you, but moving forward, I guess at this point in the season, when we talk about the New England Patriots, we talked about last season when they won the Super Bowl. They were in a very similar situation at this point last year. They're 2-2 now. The Buffalo Bills are 3-1. Not trying to state the obvious, but let's just remind each other of that. Because moving forward, obviously there are head-to-head division matchups. The Patriots will play the Bills twice. They'll play every team in their division twice. The Patriots have the Buccaneers on the road in Tampa Bay this week.
This Thursday.
And when I look at the remaining schedule, I really, and Mike, I get what you're saying here, but I really do think the make or break for the New England Patriots is right after that Atlanta game. It's depending on what they do in these next 3. Because if you can beat Tampa Bay and New York on the road, and then you beat Atlanta at home to re-solidify the fact that you beat them 28-3 in the Super Bowl, that's a difference maker because then you play LA. That's shouldn't be too hard to manage. Although LA did play a pretty good game this past year.
Poor Chargers. Just poor Chargers.
Poor. I'm sorry, San Diego. I'm sorry. You know
I'm sorry,
you've
Phillip
stayed
Rivers.
classy. You've made us some pretty good Mexican food. You've provided us with entertainment. You provided us with Nick Cannon, which we are immensely grateful for. San Diego, you gave us
nice
Tony.
beaches.
You gave us some great beaches.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing you haven't given, or one thing the Chargers weren't able to give San Diego, was a winning ball club. And to see them in LA now and just see where they're at, it's real brutal.
How about that game?
That was a good game.
That was awesome.
No, that was a good game.
Yeah, that was a great game. But what was the best about it was how the Eagles had their home
It was
field
the best of
advantage.
battles, and it was 2 very good quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you want to admit it or not, it was 2 good quarterbacks.
I'm gonna say this. I think that was Carson Wentz's best game of his career.
He was probably the best game of his career because the Chargers played a good game, but he was composed.
The Eagles never gave
the
up the
whole
lead.
game. There was a point in the 4th quarter where I didn't even have to watch the rest of it because I knew even when the Chargers scored and hit that conversion on the drive, I even knew I was like, doesn't matter because Carson Wentz can milk the clock right now, and he will milk the clock.
And the run game was looking really good.
Oh, there's Corey Clement. There was no signs of the Chargers defensive line stopping Corey Clement. There's no signs of the Chargers defensive line in general this year.
Stopping anything.
Anything coming in the general direction.
I don't know if they can stop a nosebleed.
Yeah, I guess moving back though, we were talking about the Pats. I like them to win this division just because when I look at the remainder of the schedule,
pedigree. It's pedigree. You can't.
It depends on how they play head to head versus
history.
Buffalo. But Mike, I guess you know what. As much as I'd really like to say this whole Buffalo Bills thing is a fluke, it's really not. Tyrod Taylor had 5 touchdowns this past weekend, 744 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on the season, I just think Tyrod Taylor may not be no joke.
And looking at their schedule, they have some winnable games.
A lot of winnable games.
At Cincinnati, honestly, they should
Tyrod
win
Taylor
that.
went to Virginia Tech from Hampton, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out Allen Iverson.
Shout out Allen Iverson. Always want to give a shout out.
Always shout out Allen Iverson. We'll connect that. Anyway, back to the point though.
But the Buffalo Bills definitely have some winnable games. At Cincinnati, they should win that. You know, the way their defense has been looking, there's no reason they can't win that. Then they'll play Tampa Bay at home. That's the thing. Like, Buffalo is a good team in Buffalo. At home, they're a very good team. You know, they handle the Broncos well, so they can definitely beat the Buccaneers. Then if Derek Carr is still hurt for the Raiders, which he most likely will be, that's a winnable game there too. So that's 3 straight wins for the Buffalo Bills. They're sitting at 6-1 right there, most likely. What do we say about them now?
Well, when you break it down and you look at it, the thing is like, let's say the Buffalo Bills, let's say this is a scenario. The Buffalo Bills do their miraculous. They win the division. They little brother the Patriots. The Patriots grab up a wild card this year, right? Do you have confidence in this Buffalo Bills team to do anything in the playoffs?
Well, come January time in Buffalo, there's probably going to be a blizzard every Sunday.
And that stadium's going to be sold out.
That stadium's going to be rocking because when does Buffalo get home playoff games anymore?
Usually when the blue moon comes out.
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
very
exactly.
rare.
Maybe when an eclipse comes out.
Maybe
Shout out
when the
eclipse.
eclipse. Did that work for you, by the way? It didn't work for me. I got the glasses and everything.
I
Didn't
got the
even
glasses.
work.
It looked pretty good. It was funny because I was driving back from home to Temple when it was happening. So like it was right on out my left window. So I'll just like peek with the glasses real quick, continue to driving. You know, it was funny how I was multitasking.
When I look at this schedule, I think they can beat the Buccaneers. I know they can beat the Raiders because Derek Carr is out. I know they can beat the Chargers. Those head-to-heads versus the Patriots, those are big games, and those are personal.
And they're coming
especially
in later in the season,
let's
too.
say they ride
Especially
this out.
that Week 16 game in Buffalo.
Let's say they ride this out, and this is very realistic with the Bills and Patriots schedule, where the Bills are still one game up, and they play the Patriots in Foxborough in that first game, or excuse me, in Buffalo. And the first game is in Buffalo. They play them in Foxborough the second game. Don't tell me that's not the best thing to happen to the Buffalo Bills in a very long time. You play the New England Patriots on your home turf. You'll play them in the second divisional game of the season, and you get them on your home turf. And
Week 16.
Realistically, let's say they're still up a game in the division. That's a big game.
That's a huge game. That game will decide, I think, the Buffalo Bills' playoff fate.
Well, I guess if we want to talk about the Patriots, there's not much more to talk about. Tom Brady, it's not really even been Tom Brady.
I love how they have.
Much as I like to pick on Tom Brady, but
I love how the Bills have 73 points for, the Jets have 75, the Dolphins have 25. Then we see the Patriots with 129 points for and 128 points against. Does that just pretty much just say everything for you right there?
Defensively, it's ironic awful. Because they got all these players in the offseason. You started Stephon Gilmore to the cornerback
It's
position.
odd because when I've been hearing Stephon Gilmore's name this season, it's been like, oh, the Patriots just added a true number one cornerback. But Stephon Gilmore, this time at Buffalo, was I ever hearing, oh, Stephon Gilmore's a top 5 cornerback in the league? I was never hearing that Stephon Gilmore talk. Then I feel like as soon as he went to the Patriots, everybody's like, okay, Stephon Gilmore, who was a capable cornerback, who was an above-average cornerback in his league, went to the Patriots. Now he's going to be on God status. I feel like that jump was a little too much.
Hell, I mean, Devin McCourty's been having a great year. Devin McCourty's actually way better. Even Patrick Chung's having a better year than Malcolm Butler and Stephon Gilmore. We can talk about Malcolm Butler.
Corners can't cover. I feel like that defense is crazy.
And I
right
think
now.
it's been a very odd time in New England ever since Rob Ninkovich left in the linebacker position. There's just really never been a solidified.
Because who's their leader on that defense? Who's their leader?
I think when I look at right now, the leader has got to be Devin McCourty, just because of the amount of time he's been in the NFL and the amount of time he's been in New England. He's been here. I remember when we drafted Devin McCourty. He's 30 years old now, playing in his 8th season out of Rutgers. I mean, overall, when I look at this team now for leadership, you want to talk about stats, or you talk about overall just leadership?
So, I'm talking about a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. I think Devin McCourty's the perfect compromise because he's leading this team stats-wise defensively, and he's your veteran guy. I mean, you don't turn to Malcolm as much as I'd like to say you turn to Malcolm because he's just got that whole label on him since the Super Bowl. I think when you look at leadership, I look at Devin McCourty, and Devin McCourty's been having an all right year. He's been playing not up to the standard that he would usually play at. He's obviously 30 years old now, but overall, I mean, 586 on the career, 19 interceptions. So Devin McCourty obviously has solidified his place in the NFL. He's made his name known for. I think he's a solidified guy in New England, if you ask me. I really don't see him going anywhere, barring, I mean, you never know. You never know. Jamie Collins. Jamie Collins
what do you do right now if you're in New England? This defense is... It's two straight home games. You should have, wouldn't say like
I don't know what you
easily.
do. I don't know what you do, Mike, because to be honest, Tom Brady, 10 touchdowns, 1,399 yards on the season. You can't really blame Tom Brady.
You can.
He
has no interceptions. There's really nothing you can do.
You look at the run game, you can't really ever blame the run game in New England because New England's never been a solidified run team since Corey Dillon left.
Exactly.
It's been in and out, in and out. We've had Danny Woodhead. We got a little taste of Stephen Ridley. We had a taste of Shane Vereen. Had a taste of James White, Dion. Shane Vereen, wow. Is he still in the NFL?
With the Giants right now.
Is he?
He's a
I thought he left. Well, anyway. I guess moving forward, New England, you really don't change much offensively. They've played some good teams. I'll give them that. The Panthers are a better team this year. They won against the Saints. They won a tight game versus Houston. Lost to the only undefeated team left, Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I think you win. They definitely can beat Tampa Bay, and they definitely can beat New York. And to be honest, you carry that out and you beat Atlanta. I love them.
They definitely have time to figure it out.
They got
honestly,
time.
When you have Bill
It's the
Belichick,
New England Patriots. They're 2-2.
Exactly. there's no need to push any panic buttons. I feel like there's definitely time. There's definitely time to get better, especially with this season where we mentioned earlier we don't know what's going on.
Speaking of pushing panic buttons, we want to talk about one team that's in panic button mode at the moment.
How about you want to hear something really punny? How about we shift the car to manual?
Oh. That one was underwhelming. Anyway, moving forward, we want to talk about the Oakland Raiders, who are soon to be the Las Vegas Raiders in the coming years, but they are still in Oakland for now. So, Mike, the Oakland Raiders, 2-2. Everything's fine, right? Not really. Derek Carr's out once again.
2 to 6 weeks.
2 to 6 weeks.
With back issues.
And here we are again. The Oakland Raiders.
Boy.
Could be good.
Boy.
Should be good. Honestly, could compete for an AFC title, but here we are. What do you, Mike, if you're the Oakland Raiders, what do you do? Honestly, it's a simple question, but you lose Derek Carr again. He's gone again. And you just don't know what's going on at the quarterback position. E.J. Manuel. Oh, my gosh, E.J. Manuel. I just realized that. Florida State, right?
Shift the car to manual. Get it?
Now it's starting to make sense. Now it made sense. You know, I was still hung up, and there for a second there, I thought Matt McGloin was still on Oakland for a second.
Oh.
And then I remembered where Matt McGloin is.
He had that hilarious preseason stint with the Eagles. That hilarious preseason stint. So
wow.
That was hilarious, by the way. Did I mention hilarious? But with the Raiders, I'm looking, honestly, Derek Carr hasn't been playing. Well, he started out the season good. These last 2 games were very iffy on his performance, his part, but one name I'm looking at, which I'm sort of angered by this, is Amari Cooper.
First overall pick for a lot of people in fantasy football this year.
I took him in the second round. I have him right now. I benched him these last 2 weeks where he only got nine yards respectively each week. But you got to be kidding me. He's playing awful. Like, he's playing putrid right now. He only has 110 yards and a touchdown over the first 4 games. He didn't even get reach double digits in yards these last 2 weeks.
Jerry Cook's been having a better year than Amari Cooper. Michael Crabtree's been having a better year than Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper's getting the targets too. I mean, but he only has 12 receptions so far. He's having a few drops. Last year he didn't have a lot of those issues, but he's getting a few drops this year. It's crazy because I see that game against the Jets where he dropped, a short pass that would have got him in the end zone. That would have been a touchdown, and he dropped it. And I saw the same thing week 1, where he had a touchdown prior in the game, but, the game was sort of a 1-yard dig route real quick. There was when he had a chance to catch it for the touchdown, but drops it. I mean, yes, he did go against Denver this previous week, but he's got to play better than this.
Yeah.
I mean, Amari Cooper's 4th overall pick. I hyped him up a lot. I was huge on Amari Cooper
6 yards
this year.
versus DC,
huge.
9 yards versus the Broncos, 33 versus the Jets. He has showed progression. He had 62 versus the Titans, but overall, I agree, Mike. 23 long in that one game versus the Titans.
Yeah, and that Titans game, he would have had an extra yard.
His career, he has 12 touchdowns. He only has 1 this season.
But look at those targets. He's still getting the targets. What's happening? Because I don't think Amari Cooper's this bad where he's getting shut down like that.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he did play, against Josh Norman and against the whole Denver's secondary as a whole. But come on now, this is incredible. I didn't think if Amari Cooper had a letdown year, it wouldn't be this bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's more of a problem than me than Derek Carr, honestly.
I'll tell you what's also a problem. We're going to shift to conferences right now. There's a problem going on in Philadelphia. The problem is that Philadelphia is 3-1, and the problem is that the Giants keep getting worse, and the Cowboys don't look very good. And this is a problem for the NFC in general, because when I look at the NFC, at the top of the NFC, let me give you the rundown of the division leaders in the NFC at the moment. We have the Los Angeles Rams, man, Watts, California. That's where I want to be. Beverly Hills, that's where I want to be. Watts, California, that's where I want to be. Not really, no one wants to be in Watts. Anyway, though, the LA Rams are in first place in the NFC West.
Boy.
The Carolina Panthers are in first place in the South. In the North, we have the Lions sitting atop, tied with the Packers. And then we have the Eagles. There is one team that I can confidently tell you will beat the Eagles if they play them in the postseason. I can only confidently say that because of the quarterback, and it's Green Bay. So when I look at the Philadelphia Eagles right now, and Mike, I know you got so much to say, so I'll let you take the mic.
They're number 1 in the conference right now.
They're number 1 in the conference.
Give us home field advantage.
They're 3-1. Carson Wentz is playing well. The LA Rams are surprisingly good. The Carolina Panthers just beat New England. The NFC is wide open. and I'm all for it. Mike, what's your take right now? Let's start off with the NFC East. You can start off with the Eagles. I don't care who you pick first. What do you think of the NFC East so far? Because this is a popular division amongst
I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to talk about the Eagles first.
That's fine.
But
Go ahead.
The Eagles right now are sitting at number one in the NFC. They're a lot better than last year. You can just tell. Like, last year they started off 3-1, but this team's just looking better. I saw some stats on Twitter how the Eagles only had one game last year where they had 26-plus first downs. They already have 2 of those games this year. We only won 1 road game last year. We won 2 road games this year already. We only won 1 game last year in a games decided by a touchdown or less. We already won 2 this year. 2 this year that way. So this team's already just winning those close games. Having those stats that consistent winning teams are going to have, gaining first downs, be able to rush the ball, especially in the last 2 weeks, grinding out those close wins, getting a game-winning field goal, holding off the Chargers, never giving up the lead. There's qualities in this team I'm seeing this year that I didn't see last year. When the Giants gained the lead in Week 3 when they played in the fourth quarter 21-14, last year that team would have crumbled. They would have went 3 and out the next drive. The Giants would have came down and at least got a field goal or a touchdown. Then we would have went 3 and out or 6 and out again. And it would have been no question. But this year, we give up a touchdown. It's 21-14. We go down the field again, score 21-21. Giants get a field goal. We go down, get a field goal. Stop them, we get the field goal and win. Those are things we weren't doing last year. We're doing the quality things that you grind out to get wins. Yes, the Redskins game, Kirk Cousins' arms might have been moving forward, and honestly, they were. But hey, we found a way to win. I feel like this team is finding ways to win when last year we were hoping to win.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference.
And I think the difference, obviously, being defensively, it's a lot better. Offensively, it's a lot better. Carson Wentz is making a lot fewer mistakes at this point last season. He was primed. The Eagles looked great, but then there was that second half where you were like, oh, okay, well, that's not what I wanted. But when you look at Carson Wentz so far, 307 yards versus Washington, 242. The worst game he's had all season was a win versus the New York Giants where he had 176 yards, completed 67.7% of the passes thrown, no INTs. There have been 2 INTs on the season. Both were in the start of the game. Since then, he has yet to throw an interception. His quarterback rating was 91.1 versus the LA Chargers.
And here's the thing. Both those interceptions were deflections.
They were.
From the defensive line.
And going forward, when I look at offense to defensive matchups, here's the one I really, really look forward to when I look at Carson Wentz. He's got to play LA on the road late in the season. He's got to play the Raiders late on the road in the season. Bears game's a win. I can tell you that. Broncos game should be a win. It's manageable. Skins game's manageable. Niners are manageable.
I'm looking at this next stretch of 5 games leading up to the bye week, and 4 of those games are at home, and the Eagles last year only lost 1 home game. The Eagles are historically and usually they play good at home. They're a good team when they play in the Link because the Link's always rocking, man. I love being in the Link on Sunday. Nothing like it. But their next 5 games, 4 of them at home. The only away game is a Thursday night game in Carolina. I think, honestly, looking at that's the only game I'm worried about as an Eagles fan, thinking, okay, there's a good chance we will probably lose that game rather than win it. But these other 4 games, I really see no reason why we can't beat Arizona. Washington, with all these injuries on defense, why we can't beat them again. Then San Francisco, they don't have a win right now, so that's the exact reason why we should beat them. In Denver, we have them at home. I don't see a reason why we can't win that game either.
Yeah.
So especially with all these games at home, I'm feeling really confident the way this team's looked, the way this team is finding ways to win. I'm feeling really optimistic about this team.
Yeah. I'm also feeling a little bit optimistic. We'll continue in the same conference, but feeling a little bit more optimistic about the Lions the more I watch them more and more, and that's an interesting team to talk about. We're gonna get to the Rams at the very end here, but we'll talk about the Lions right now. Mike, what's your take so far? They're at 3-1. They're sitting atop the NFC North. They got a game versus the Panthers, who just beat the Patriots this past week. Got to play the Steelers coming up, Packers coming up. A lot of testful games for the Detroit Lions. See how they handle it. Matt Stafford's on that big contract, highest paid quarterback in the league. He's having a pretty good year himself, Mr. Stafford. And last game, actually, hold on. I'll pull it up here for a second. On the season, he has 887 yards, 1 pick, which I like a lot because Matt Stafford has always been known to throw too many interceptions and too many costly situations.
Yeah, been known as a gunslinger. I think he's calmed down.
He's been playing well. Amir Abdullah's been playing pretty well on the ground. We talked a lot about how the Lions' run game was absent last season.
Absent,
and it's good to see that that's back because, geez, did they need it. This team overall, With Golden Tate out wide, Abdullah on the ground, you have Matt Stafford at quarterback. You got Marvin Jones Jr., young guy. Theo Riddick, obviously, Eric Ebron, who's, I guess, had a decent year. Man, that was the storyline a couple weeks ago was, damn, it was Eric Ebron going to do anything this season? And, well, he hasn't.
No,
Really.
I mean, Eric Ebron, I guess, just isn't good.
No.
But
Overall.
the Lions, they still have the Packers twice, so the NFC North is nowhere near, close to secured. They didn't play. They played one division game so far. They beat the Vikings and Minnesota, but they're really Golden Tate being 2 inches taller away from beating the Falcons, if you think about it.
Worth the Charlotte Hornets, just Muggsy Bogues 5 inches taller away from a title.
Yeah, exactly.
Every team's just inches away.
It's a game of inches,
It
man.
is a game of inches.
But they definitely have a very testy schedule. Next week they have the Panthers coming up. They're coming into Detroit. But the game in New Orleans and the game in Green Bay, there are 2 of those games in the next 4 weeks. I feel like are the big games. The road games. The road games are always bigger than home games, in my opinion, because I feel like if you win them, you're really setting up your season, because you're usually supposed to win the home games. It's really those road games that really prove if you're a playoff team or not. It's all about how you do on the road compared to how you do at home to a certain extent.
Right.
I feel like that's how it is, and I feel like those 2 games will really tell us about the line. Really tell us a lot about the Lions, because really they should be 4-0 if you think about it. What happened at the end of that Falcons game, but I like the way Matt Stafford's playing. I like how that offense is just very consistent, moving, short moving. Just Jim Bob Cooter leading them up the field. Jim Bob Cooter's leading the Lions up the field. It's amazing. The defense is looking a lot better. Ziggy Ansah I love Ziggy Ansah. I've been loving him ever since he came into the league. He's a pure pass rusher. I just love how he just gets after the quarterback. He's amazing. I just love the way the Lions are looking this year.
One other team, it's hard, and we got to kind of keep the pace moving forward, because there's a lot to talk about in the NFL. And moving forward, but there's one team I want to talk about, and Mike, you already read my mind. I could see it on the stat sheet already. We got to talk about them because Watts, California is where I want to be right now.
It's
Go
lit.
Rams!
It's
How about
lit.
them 3-1 Rams, Mike?
How
Want to talk about them 3-1 Rams real quick?
How about them Rams?
How about them
going
Rams?
into Jerry World, beating the Cowboys,
getting the win with those new helmets that I really wish they would just go back to the old ones. Those ones are cool.
See, it makes no sense if you're going to put white on your helmet. You're just going to keep your jerseys gold, but you put white on your pants. You change everything but your jerseys. It just
might as well just change the jerseys.
Exactly. Like, what are you doing at this point? You're just being super redundant at this point.
Well, they have Seattle at home this coming week in Watts, California, where I want to be, man.
And the way the Seahawks are llooking, if you exclude the fourth quarter or the second half against the Colts, the Rams can definitely win that game in the Coliseum, in the 75% filled Coliseum, with about 60% Rams fans.
Moving forward, Mike, you said Rams can definitely win that game. Man, it's early. Breakfast is still cooking. Can the Rams win this division this year with what you've seen so far?
I don't know. The breakfast smells kind of good.
Well, the Seahawks are 2-2, and they're playing the Seahawks this week, so that could tell you a little something.
I think that'll tell us a lot of something.
Yeah.
I think we'll the hash browns might be done after that game because I think.
Will they be golden though?
That's the thing. Hey, their jerseys are golden. Their helmets aren't though. So the verdict's not out yet.
Is their attitude golden though?
I think their attitude is golden. Sean McVay is the big reason why their attitude is golden. I think he's an early candidate for Coach of the Year, just judging on the first 4 games. He's definitely up there in that conversation. The way how Jared Goff looked like a non-capable, just like another quarterback who will probably eventually be on the Cleveland Browns, to now looks like he can maybe be franchise quarterback for the LA Rams, to maybe when they move eventually back to Seattle. I mean St. Louis, excuse me. But, the Rams are looking a lot better. Yeah. They really are. Their offense,
they're 3-1.
Their offense is greatest show on turf numbers right now. And Sammy Watkins is... What are we not saying this about Sammy Watkins? Is a little banged up. Health is always in the air. If he can maybe get healthy towards the end of the season, this team can definitely make a run in the end of the season. Definitely make a run in the playoffs. And I think it all starts with this game in the LA Coliseum against Seattle. If they can fill 70% of the seats.
Yeah. 70% seat. Who couldn't fill 70% of the seats? At least the Eagles could fill 70% of the seats with the LA Chargers.
The Eagles filled up the Chargers.
At the Home Depot Center. At the Home Depot Center, let alone. I don't even know what to say anymore. I don't even know what to say about the NFL. Got a lot to talk about in the coming weeks.
I just think Los Angeles football is a myth.
LA's not a football town.
There's too much to do in LA.
I could go on a whole tangent on that.
Like, there's so much to do in LA, and you're not going to gain their interest by just throwing, a 5-11 team in there. Just like, hey, LA, you got a 5-11 team. There's your football team.
Probably not.
They're going to be like, no, I'd rather just go to Starbucks.
The Chargers could be the new, the new Browns. Heck, blue and gold could be the new brown and white. You don't even know.
If I'm Phillip Rivers, I want to leave. I just want to just go far, far away and never be in contact with anybody again. Poor guy. Well, he definitely looks frustrated.
Love San Diego.
He definitely looks frustrated.
I love San Diego. Who doesn't love San Diego?
Yeah, how can
Come
you
on.
not love San Diego?
I would rather play in San Diego than LA, hands down.
Because
I could do La Jolla.
San Diego would definitely come out, show a little support, not a lot, but a little.
Heck,
compared to LA. Whew.
Heck, I mean, Aaron Rodgers lives in Del Mar. He says Del Mar is pretty nice. I've been to Del Mar. It's real nice. I could live near Aaron Rodgers. What do you say, Aaron Rodgers? Want to be neighbors? We can both live in Del Mar Beach. Neighbors, yeah. Heck yeah. Well,
we'll mow your lawn.
Yeah,
we'll do all that.
We'll do it all. And it would be tough for us to cover it all, but we're going to do our best to cover it all. We're going to take a step out of football. We're talking a lot of football there for a second. So let's take a deep breath, and we're going to move on forward from the football field to the dirt. We're going to talk about baseball. It's that time of year again, folks. The time we wait 162 games for, long dreaded summer nights, summer days, spring nights.
Really hot.
And it's getting real hot in here right now, not because it's almost October, but because we have a lot to talk about. But at the same time, we don't have a lot to talk about because there's only 2 games, but there are 2 very big games coming up this week. Obviously, the MLB playoffs is kicking in. Mike, how are you feeling about that? Blood pressure? How's the blood pressure, actually?
The blood pressure is very high right now because I'm watching this Yankees-Twins game right now, and it's 3-0, 2 outs. The Yankees got the bases loaded, and
that's
I want the Twins to get some love.
And that's just the honey-baked ham sample. I wasn't even getting to the good stuff.
Exactly.
We got playoff baseball now.
That's number 1.
So anyway, moving forward, playoff baseball, we have 2 matchups solidified right now in the DS. We obviously have the Nationals playing the Cubs, and then in the American League, we have the Red Sox playing the Astros. We're going to talk first off about the American League, as fitting. It starts with A for the alphabet.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about the Boston Red Sox and the Houston Astros. I'll start this one out. Because we have quite possibly the best matchup we're going to get. We'll see. You never know. But I think as of now, one of the best matchups we'll get in the playoffs because it's 2 very evenly matched teams, 2 very good teams going head-to-head here, Mike. We're going to start out with the Red Sox. Breaking down the Red Sox this season, obviously first, they won the AL East, 93-69 on the season. We've seen through this year, throughout various stretches that this team is good and that this team can also be very bad. But that's baseball. But for the Red Sox especially, the big storyline obviously going in, David Price getting paid all that money a few years back, Chris Sale coming in the offseason, Eduardo Nunez acquired from San Francisco at the deadline, Xander Bogaerts, Mookie Betts and company, Andrew Benintendi, the young Red Sox team going up against a young Houston Astros team. The only difference is the Houston Astros made moves at the deadline, whereas the Red Sox didn't make a series of moves, and that category comes in pitching. We're starting out with pitching, Mike. We look at the Houston Astros, obviously Dallas Keuchel, Justin Verlander, the Astros aces. You look at David Price and you look at Chris Sale. Overall, pitching-wise, Mike, going deep into this series, I really look at this matchup to come down to pitching overall. The offenses are going to bring firepower, especially the Astros offense. Who do you think overall will get the job done when it comes down to it, Mike?
I think the Astros because their first 2 games are at home. And Game 1, they have Justin Verlander starting. Game 2, they have Dallas Keuchel starting. It's going to be tough for Boston to win any of those games in Houston. It's going to be real hard. Be straight up honest with you, it's going to be...
If they steal one, though.
If they steal one, I think the Red Sox have the upper hand. But if they don't steal one, they're not out of it. Because, they have Lance McCullers and Charlie Morton they have to face in Fenway Park. And the Red Sox, I think, can definitely beat those 2 up. But I think Houston will probably get off to a good jump in the series because they have those 2 going, especially Justin Verlander Game 1. Because the thing is with baseball, like when these trades come in, it's not like a guy has to learn a new system. It's not like he has to get chemistry.
Same game, new team.
Exactly. He has to just go out. I was like, okay, Justin, just do what you've been doing for the last 20 years. You're just wearing different swag right now. Just go do it. And he's going to do that. He's pitched in World Series games. He's pitched in meaningful playoff games. He's pitched in any moment you name it, Justin Verlander's pitched in it. So game one is going to be tough for the Red Sox, especially a young Red Sox team where you have, Mookie Betts, Andrew Benintendi, on the lesser experience side compared to Justin Verlander. I feel like that's going to be big for game one. And game two, you have Dallas Keuchel, one of the better pitchers in the AL. So it's going to be tough those first two games. If Houston can get out to a good series lead, I think that will be the game changer, which I think they probably will get out to a quick 2-0 series lead.
Right. I think we look at offensively, defensively, depth is going to be a big thing because I'll reiterate it once again. It's two very good offenses. Looking forward in this series, I look for, obviously, Jose Altuve always steps up in these big-time situations. Houston's been there for a while. I look at Carlos Correa offensively. I look at George Springer. I look at an overwhelming Houston Astros offensive team. Mike, do you think, and I'll talk after you, but offensively, the Red Sox and Houston Astros have one thing in common, and that's youth. Do you think the Houston Astros overall have the upper hand due to pitching, or do you think that the offense has something to do with it? And do you think the Red Sox offense is even a little bit better and can overpower this pitching when it comes down to it?
I just like the Astros because of that home field advantage. I think what we saw 2 years ago when they made it to the ALCS against the Kansas City Royals, that first series, they're jumping when they're at home.
Right.
Those home games they had in 2015, they were jumping every time they were in Houston, and I feel like that's going to be, I'll just reiterate it, but that's going to be the biggest part of the series. I think Houston has those two games with their two aces, going straight at Boston and Houston. I feel like they'll jump out 2-2 a series lead, and it's going to be too much for Boston to overcome because I think Houston, they're sort of a team that went under the radar, towards the end of the season because we just talked about, okay, the Indians are breaking American League records and the Dodgers, suck right now to end out the season. And the Astros, were really consistent for pretty much the whole season except for really sort of 3 weeks to a month after the trade deadline where they didn't get anybody. But the Astros, other than that little point of the season, were pretty much plateauing. They're at their highest level playing consistent, day in, day out, good Houston Astros baseball. And I think that's what we don't appreciate. Like, the Astros really didn't have a lot of ups and downs. That's why they're sort of an under-radar team. That's why I like them this year. They're very consistent. They're really not making headlines because it's not like they're a new team on the block. 2 years ago they made the playoffs. Last year there was a little fluctuation year, but I think this year they're primed and ready.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. One thing I think the Boston Red Sox can win this series, and here's one way the Boston Red Sox can win it. One, they got to steal a game in Houston. And two, they have to win at home at Fenway. In a stadium they very much can win at home at in the postseason. They play very well at Fenway in the postseason. The one reason I think the Red Sox can overcome this is because all season this team's been very responsive. There were always a lot of points in the season where the Rays would knock on the door, the Yankees would knock on the door, and the Red Sox would always respond. And there was a point in the middle of the season where the Red Sox were down in the division by 3 games, and it came to the point where it was like, what's going on with the Red Sox?
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end of the year, it was a close race. The AL East was interesting in general this year. I think it was one of the more exciting races in baseball.
Yeah.
Especially
in the middle of the year.
They really responded well, and they really closed out the season well. But coming off the last time they played the Astros, the Sox dropped 3 of 4 games to the Astros. The Astros won 3 of those 4. So, but at the same time, I guess what I'm trying to get here is this team is young, and they're good, and they have a lot of offensive power. It's all about responsiveness. How do you respond? Let's say you drop 2 games in Houston. How do you respond to that, and how do you come back? Let's say you win 1 game. How do you respond to that? Do you take that? Do you overwhelm yourself? Do you overanalyze the situation and use it as momentum, or do you continue to play ball? The Red Sox have been at their best when they've played ball. This first game is Verlander versus Sale, 2 pitchers who have very little to prove because they've already proved enough on the season. So what I really look at, and this is, I feel like for every series, but for this one especially, is this Game 1 pitching matchup in Houston. Who's going to win it? Because after that, obviously, as you mentioned, you have Dallas Keuchel the next night. The Sox will throw out Price. And then after that, you throw out Kelly. And then once you get past that hump, then you start to dig down deep, and you have to figure out depth-wise, what do we have bullpen-wise. And I think the Astros may not convincingly have the upper hand, but it does seem like that at points in the season, especially when they played head-to-head, that pitching-wise, the Astros were able to have that upper hand. The Red Sox are down whether they want to know it or not. It's a closely matched series, but those 2 games at home are going to be a problem. I just think it all depends on what happens in those 2 games and how the Sox respond to that.
I think so, but do you think there's a good chance the Red Sox could come out and rough up Verlander right
I
away?
think there is a very high chance of it, just because, like I said, I really, really like this offense right now. Mookie Betts, Andrew Benintendi. I really like Xander Bogaerts having a lot better of a season. Mitch Moreland's a wild card. Hanley Ramirez is a wild card. You got all those guys combined early on in the game. They can jump early, and they did jump early. They played the Astros on a Sunday night baseball game in June, where the Red Sox and Astros played a tough game, but the Red Sox jumped out early to a 4-0 lead in that game convincingly. They dropped 2 games to the Astros, as I mentioned earlier. We'll drop 3 out of the 4 total in the series, but there were 2 games in specific where the Red Sox jumped out to a 3-0, 4-0 early lead in that game and then blew it. So I'm not worried about how they'll jump out. I just think you kind of hit it right on the nail earlier when you were talking about these 2 home games and late in games and the bullpen and the Astros obviously being at home. I feel like one big player, Carlos Correa Dinger or George Springer to the top to the choo-choo train, which isn't even there anymore, is it? Choo-choo train's not there.
The tracks are still there. I don't know if the
tracks are still there.
still
To
there.
the tracks. One small thing like that, not even a small thing. That's a game changer. This is the MLB postseason, so I think the Astros, if you ask me, will win this series, but it's all about what happens in these first 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, especially this series.
Speaking of the first 2 games that the home field team is going to be looking to take advantage of, the Nationals. Shout out to
We can move it. We can move it because obviously there's a lot to talk about. 2 close-knit teams, very closely matched, but there's another matchup where you really don't know if they're.
Exact thing.
You really don't know what you're going to get because the Cubs are obviously reigning World Series champions. They did the impossible last season, and the Nationals, comparative to the years before, it seems like every year for DC sports is the year.
And we're going to say it's the year.
You always say that. Last year they said it for the Caps. If it's going to be any year, it's this one. But truthfully, if it's going to be any year, it really is this one for the Washington Nationals, snagging up another division title this year. Very convincingly so. Won the division by 20 games. Wasn't even close. The Nats are a very interesting ball club and a very good ball club, and they have the pitching and they have the firepower. Daniel Murphy has experience. We know what Bryce Harper is going to bring. Ryan Zimmerman, if he brings it, we know what he's going to bring. I really like those extra pieces they have. Obviously, Howie Kendrick's a wild card here and there. Adam Eaton's a wild card. Anthony Rendon's always a wild card. Adam Lynn's a wild card.
They have a really deep team.
It's a deep team.
What I like the most is their relief additions they made in the middle of the season, especially
Sean Doolittle from Oakland,
who's been killing it.
Yeah. And it was funny because I really did think Sonny Gray would go to Houston when it all came down to it, but he went to New York. And to be honest with you, I don't even know what's going on in Oakland. That's a whole other team we can talk about. But I think that was one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, in his 30 game pitch with the Nationals, he has 21 saves and only 1 blown save. Mm-hmm. I think that's huge that the Nationals are finally getting consistency in their bullpen, especially the back end. And you add a better name. Shout out to the 2008 Phillies, Ryan Madson.
Ryan Madson, yeah.
That's a great piece to have in the back of your bullpen to pull out, and even their starting pitching staff's pretty deep. You know, their 4 starters, Taylor Rourke. Their 4 starters, Taylor Rourke, and Taylor Rourke as your 4 starter is not really bad. You know, especially when you have Matt Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, and Gio Gonzalez going 1, 2, 3. Yeah. That's huge. And going against the Chicago Cubs, reigning World Series champions, where I don't know how to feel about them. Like, I feel good because
they're definitely
won the
not
World
as good as
Series
they
last
were.
year.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they're the same exact team. They should be better because they're a really young team last year. Now they're a year older.
It's not like much really changed other than the fact that the Milwaukee Brewers gave them a run for their money this year.
Milwaukee Brewers gave them a real fight.
I got to give them a shout-out because I wrote about them on my blog. I actually had them being one of the more convincing teams in the second half of the season. Gave them a good fight, good season. Milwaukee get back in the race next year. But
sausage race.
Yeah, the sausage race. That's right. I could go for the sausage right now.
I definitely go for sausage. That sausage race was pretty fun, though. I remember when I went to Miller Park.
What's cooler, though, the sausage race or the President's race?
I'm going to have to say a sausage race.
See,
I like the sausage race a lot because it's hilarious.
Because I've just seen too many President's races, but I got to be honest, that one time I was there and Teddy Roosevelt won, that was probably the coolest thing. Mm-hmm. The Nats lost that game. Lost it. The Rockies.
I remember when I went there, something jumped out of the stands. It was a prop, obviously beforehand, it just decked George Washington. Yeah. I love when that happens.
Well, pitching-wise, the Chicago Cubs are still a pretty good team. The only difference is, obviously, Aroldis Chapman is not there. Jake Arrieta is still there, though, and so is John Lester and John Lackey, the 2 Johns, former Red Sox, both commemoratively. Mike Montgomery, obviously. So there is pitching there. Wade Davis is a good pitcher.
Yeah, definitely a question around that pitching because Jake Arrieta's had sort of a fluctuating year, 1 month you're really high on them, then the next month you don't know what's going on. Then John Lester and John Lackey are getting up in age.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going on with them. It's a real question mark year for the Cubs, but they have all those questions answered, but you're still questioning them.
Well, the thing is you don't know what you're going to get with Jake Arrieta, and to be honest, you don't know what you're going to get with anyone besides Max Scherzer. When I put Max Scherzer in a playoff baseball game, I know I'm most likely getting a win.
Mm-hmm.
With the rest of those guys, honestly, I'd like to say I most likely know I'm getting a win, but I think the Nationals can win this series solely by outdoing, and they should. Why wouldn't they? Like we said, the depth is there. The Chicago Cubs have depth. Well, yeah, so do the Nationals, and they got home field.
They really can, and with Bryce
We
Harper
talked about
back in
home
the
field a
lineup.
lot. Yeah, and Bryce
And the
Harper's
Nationals
in the
finished
lineup.
out the season strong when Bryce Harper was hurt. Bryce Harper's now back. He's to be there hitting. I feel like that really boosts their lineup. I think they can definitely beat Chicago, and it all starts with those 2 games in D.C. at Nationals Park in the Navy Yard.
Yeah. I think Chicago has the capability to turn that, even if the Nats were to go up 2-0, when the field obviously turns back to Chicago, the Windy City.
Yeah, the only
when they go
reason
back
I'm
to
not
Wrigley.
panicking on the Cubs this year is because they won the World Series. I feel like if they didn't win the World Series this
And
year,
it's
we
hard
would
to
be like, we
panic
don't know
on
what's going
when
on.
you're playing a Washington sports team. Because
Especially the Nationals.
The Nationals were supposed to have been in the National League Championship Series by now. I'm not going to bring up the Cardinals. Wait, just did. Oh, yep, sorry about that. If you get
What about the
butthurt,
Braves?
talk about the Braves. We're going to talk about a lot of different teams, to be honest.
Yeah, we can
but
talk about them all, I think.
we can talk about them all.
What about the Dodgers?
The Dodgers.
When they lost to them.
Hey, while we're at it, hey, let's look it up, Mike. All the teams the Washington Capitals have lost to within the first 2 rounds of the playoffs in the past 10 years, because there's a lot of them, and they all...
There's about like 3.
Yeah, there's about 3 of them, actually. Never mind. There's not a lot of them, because it's always the same 2. And there's the one exception of the Montreal Canadiens.
Well, the Nationals definitely don't want to add the Cubs to that list this year.
And I don't think the Nationals want to replicate what the Washington Capitals have done or replicate what DC Sports has done. I think this is the best opportunity DC Sports
This is
has
definitely
gotten.
the best team the Nationals have had during their time coming from Montreal.
And if they get a championship series, when you look at the other side, I mean, you don't know, because we still got
the Dodgers finish out the season, a little
Can the
weak.
Dodgers finish out?
Can the Dodgers
There's
finish
no
out?
reason
The
that's...
Diamondbacks looking really good. Shout out Diamondbacks. Shout out Paul Goldschmidt and the crew up in Denver.
Yeah.
Rocktober.
Yeah, and
Colorado
Coors Field.
Rockies.
Gosh. It's just, honestly, I think when you look at it, it's all about the Dodgers and Nats. So I really like these 2 teams because they have one thing in common.
I really don't see a reason
They
why the
both
Nats
can't
make the
finish
World
out,
Series.
though. They both never have proven to me in the past 5 years that they can finish out, but here's the opportunity.
Exactly.
So what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean?
And really, the Cubs kind of scare me as a team that could really shock us all because they won the World Series last year, so, they're probably fine with people sleeping on them. And they can really take advantage. Steal 1 in Washington, then they get 2 in Wrigley. Wrigley
I didn't even know
Wrigley
the
playoff
Cubs...
baseball. You never know what's going to happen.
I had confidence in the Brewers. I even had confidence in the Cardinals when they were knocking at the door. Wow, it's great to not see the Cardinals in the playoffs this year. Wow.
They tried to ruin. They
They really
our postseason.
did.
They tried.
Man, they
tried
almost
hard.
came in. I was about to blow out my birthday candles, and he was coming in with a hot fan. Man, that fan was coming in hot. But guess what? I blew out the candles before. That was the Cardinals this season.
Yeah.
No birthday cake for you. St. Louis.
Exactly.
But
You're gonna have to miss out this year. Good for you.
Gonna be an exciting postseason. I already like the teams that are in it so far. I like where we're going with this at the moment.
Well,
Got some new teams, fresh teams, and
Well, it looks like we're getting closer and closer to our first elimination of the playoffs.
watching this live. Got the Yankees up 8-4 right now.
Yeah, 8-4 in the bottom of the 8th. And looks like the Twins are going to win. I mean, Twins are going to lose this one.
Yeah.
So, they got a 3-0 lead in the first inning over Brian Dozier. Brian Dozier started them off the game with a solo home run, but fell downhill from there. Aaron Judge hit a fast line drive home run out of the park in the 4th inning, and just downhill from there.
Arizona, Colorado, the 2 very opposite states, yet somewhat similar. Same division, too.
Yeah, so similar.
Yeah.
4 corners. The little 4 corners matchup.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, and we're ready to buckle down for the rest of the MLB postseason. Me personally, I'm really looking forward to obviously seeing what the Red Sox can do, what these other teams can do, and we'll continue to talk about it, and we'll continue to get up, get the spirits up, because it is postseason, the NFL's back, and one thing else is coming back this week, and actually 2 things coming up, but one thing is right around the corner, and we wanted to end the show off on this specifically because this sport holds a very, very deep place, very true place in me and Mike's heart. Ladies and gentlemen, hockey's back.
Hockey is here.
Hockey's back. Hockey back.
back.
Flyers are on Wednesday. Caps are on Thursday. Mike, how you feeling about it?
Flyers are playing in 23 hours from now as I'm looking in the clock, and I'm feeling great.
You're lucky you get that. I gotta wait till Thursday.
You gotta wait till Thursday?
We don't play till Thursday. Capitals are on Thursday.
You want to come over watch the Flyers Sharks game with me?
I'll come over at 10:30.
Okay, that sounds
Late
good.
slot.
Yeah.
Play Ottawa on the road.
Play Ottawa. That's gonna be a nice little game to start the season.
Good game.
I love how the Flyers always have to start out on the West Coast, just make it hard on everybody, especially us. But I'm liking how the Flyers are looking this year. I like we got a nice injection of youth talent. We have both Samuel Moran, all three of Samuel Moran, Travis Samheim, and Robert Hagg, making the opening night roster. One of them will probably go down to Lehigh Valley though, as Shane Goss
as is tradition.
But one thing that does get me mad is we do have Claude Drew as the captain, but we have Andrew McDonald and Viteri Filppula as the alternate captains.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Tom Wilson's already suspended 4 games.
Tom Wilson, he already got suspended.
He got suspended.
I love it.
Tom
Wilson doing what he does best.
Getting suspended.
But I like the way the Flyers are looking this year. They have a very solid They have a very solid veteran core. Then they're getting a nice injection of young players. They had Travis Konecny and Ivan Provorov coming last year, but we're getting Nolan Patrick, the second overall pick, who I'm so excited for, number 19. He had a fight with David Krejci, gave him a couple jabs. I'm just loving how this team's looking. It'll probably be a little off here, but I think we can definitely squeeze into the playoffs. But I'm just ready for this youth movement. It's slowly coming. But next year will be the year for the Flyers. But this year is just another step in the right direction. I'm just excited to see the growth.
Yeah. I think moving forward this year, obviously one team I always keep my eyes on, Chicago Blackhawks, interested to see what they do. I am very much interested to see what the Nashville Predators do after that Stanley Cup loss last season. Obviously very excited about my Capitals, nervous but excited. It was a busy offseason. Was it for the better? Was it not for the better? That's for the Capitals to decide. That's for us as fans to watch.
Get the answer.
We'll observe and we'll know within the first 2 months, and I'll tell you if it was for the better or wasn't for the better. Lots to talk about, a lot coming up. Hockey's back, NBA preseason just started, MLB postseason, NFL, NCAA football, and no more LeVar Ball. Oh my gosh.
Well, we got a little LeVar Ball
because
he pulled his son out of high school.
Pull his son out of high school. Interesting topic.
Hey, let him raise his kids. I'll let him raise his kids however he wants to. Hey, I'm respecting the man. He has his own decisions. I'm gonna let him do him, but if it's right or for the wrong, we'll find out when he's coming into UCLA in 2 years.
Hey, he's going to do him, and we're going to do us, and doing us is doing what we love the most, and that's obviously having TFL. We got another jam-packed episode coming to you soon. Thank you for tuning in tonight on The First Line. Mike, any closing remarks after tonight's show?
I'm just going to be, if anybody wants to get in contact with me, I'll just be sitting in front of my TV for about the next week or so, just watching sports, because there's a lot of it. Just as you mentioned, hockey, basketball, football, everything's just kicking off. It's amazing. I'm just enjoying it. I'm just sitting back and enjoying the show.
Yeah, busy weekend, going to a show on Friday. Obviously excited for that. Mm-hmm. Glass Animals, if you're in Philly and you still need tickets, you should probably get them. It's going to be a good time.
It's going to be a very fun time.
Good time with friends. Saturday should be great. College football, Sunday. Hopefully I can watch.
Week 5, the NFL action.
Already
week 5.
Already week 5.
Already week 5.
And it feels great. It feels great. It's going fast.
How's your fantasy team looking?
My fantasy team's all right, Mike. We don't want to talk about my fantasy team.
You don't want to talk about your fantasy team?
We'll talk about my fantasy team. I'm at 2-2 right now. I'm at 2-2 right now.
I'm at 3-1.
You know who my number 1 overall pick was? Amari Cooper.
Really? He was my second round pick. My number 1 was Mike Evans, who's been pretty solid.
I got Travis Kelce. I'm lit about that.
Yeah.
I also have Hunter Henry, who's been okay.
Yeah, I was 3-0 in my league. I was matching up with the other 3-0 team in my league last week, and it was just Ty Montgomery goes out in the first quarter, Jarvis Landry, bad, and it just starts going downhill, and he just has Todd Gurley and Tom Brady, and I'm just like, wow.
Well, our GM, our lives as football as GMs may be fantasy, but what isn't fantasy is this show. It is very real, and we love doing it, and we can't wait to bring you more on the next installment of The First Line. Sending Massimo our best. Thank you for tuning in.
Massimo.
Get well, Mass. Tune in next week for another jam-packed episode. I'm Taylor. This is Mike. We're signing off. Thank you. Have a good night.